What are we doing today? We are going to do a inline method feeder rig, and we're just going to go through how I'd attach that to the line. I get questions about how I attach the beads. We'll go through all the tying and all that in detail, and then we'll also tie an additional hook link to go onto there as well, and hopefully you'll get some good information out there which will heed you well to catching some fantastic fish. So let's flip the camera, we'll go onto the workbench, and hopefully we'll teach you a few things about tying a very simple but very effective rig. Right guys, so you see a few things in front of me. I've got this engaged line to just imitate the main line from your reel, and we've got a few simple things to start off. The hook link will come to after. So we've got some inline quick change beads from Preston, and we've got a stem, a feeder and a sleeve. Now obviously this can be a method feeder, it can be anything you want, and it doesn't have to be a Preston one. This can be any type that you like. So this is what we call a running rig, or an inline running rig. Now why is it called that? So it's inline because everything is in one line. I know that sounds obvious, but what we're trying to do is cover the basics of this rig. So inline means everything is in one line, so the feeder and the hook link and the bait will all run inline in one line. So why is it called free running? Or you might hear people call it free running. So in a lot of fisheries now around the country, you can't have something that's called a fixed rig. A fixed rig is something that doesn't move at all, and a running rig or a free running rig is something that will slide up and down the line and will have no obstruction. So if you unfortunately break off and the fish is still tethered to a feeder, because it's free running, when the line breaks, the feeder will simply just drop off and it won't be dragging that big weight and this tube around with it, although it'll still have a hook link, but hopefully it'll be caught again and be able to unhook, and it won't snag onto anything. If it's a fixed rig, then what can happen is the line could break above the fixed feeder, and it can be tethering that feeder around with it, which is not great for the fish or for you either. So we're going to start off by just getting a little bit of main line off and putting it out the way. So we've got the main line. There's a few simple steps that you've got to remember. Now with the feeders, because it's what they call the interchangeable feeder system, we don't actually need this just yet. So we're going to put that out the way, because all that does is create weight while you're trying to tie everything on, and we don't want that. So always start with the sleeve. Now why do we start with the sleeve? Because if you don't put it on, there's nothing to go over the end of the cap once this is onto the main line. So we always go through the top part of the sleeve, and the reason we do that is because we're going to pull the big base side down onto the tube. So that's now running, sliding on there nice and simply. So we're going to slide that completely out the way, we don't need that for a while, and we're going to run this line, main line, through this tube. This is where you want some glasses on if you're blind like me. So we're going to run that line through that tube. So again, we have a free running rig like so. So this is where most people are asking me the questions. So we take one of these feeder beads. Now again, you can get your own different feeder beads, whatever type or make that you want. I like the Preston ones because I use the Preston interchange system, and these fit into the bottom of it. It just makes everything nice and snug. So get one of these out. We'll just put that line down for a second, and we'll bring this up to camera. So this little bead comes in two parts. I'm just going to nick one off with my teeth. So it comes in, that's part number one, and that's part number two. So that sits inside like so, and this is where you attach the loop of your hook link, and it's a little bit like what they call a storm through connector or a connector on a pole, and then that would push in, and then obviously it wouldn't come off. So we need to thread this part first onto the line, and then we'll attach this piece, which is the piece what people want to know. So we'll come back down to that main line, and we get that main line, and when we're doing it, we want to go through the little stalk part. The stalk part is what is going to sit in the bottom of the feeder, and we don't want that to be the wrong way around. So this is where you really do need some eyesight, because this is a tiny hole. There we go. So now you can see that's now sliding on the line. So again, we'll move that out of the way because we don't need that. And this is where you really do need some eyesight. So on the back of it, it's got a hole. What we're going to do is slide the main line through the hole. So on there is now sliding. You can just see. So it's sliding. Now the way I tie it now, this may vary for people. You might have your own ways of doing it, but this knot will never ever come off if it's tied properly. So once it's slid through, you got two parts. You got a line at this side and you got a line at this side. You're going to just pull yourself a bit of excess line off and trap the two lines together. So what you've got now is you've got a loop, and you can, hopefully you can see that. I think you can. So you've got it sat on the loop. We've got the tag end in my hand here, and here is the loop. And what we're going to do is an overhand loop that you would normally tie, we're going to tie that with this inside the loop. So over the top, and that creates a little loop, and we're just going to tuck that over and gently pull that down, but we're not going to pull it tight. The reason is sometimes you need to use the tag end to seat that knot right down to the bottom of this little sleeve. So it's nearly right to the bottom, and we grab it with his teeth, moisten the knot, always moisten the knot, and gently pull that down. And that's the first step. So that's pulled down and it's tightened one, and I always do it twice. So just repeat that system, just go round and over, loop that over, and you're pulling that little loop till it's nearly tight. Moisten it again and grab the tag end in your teeth and your main line in your hand, and just gently pull that main line until that knot seats against the other knot and it's tight, and that's going nowhere. So I'll try and bring it right up to camera if it'll focus. It's just right up against there, and there's a tag just hanging off, and all we do is snip that tag like so, and we end up with a really tight knot against the back of it. You need to make sure it pulls to the back of it, and then what you can do is just simply slide down that bead, and then that will go straight over the top like so, and with a little pull you can see that sleeve shut now, and that sleeve would be what your hook link sits on. The tube itself will now slide right down to the bottom, and as you see, that bead seats perfectly in the bottom of that stalk like so, and it makes it really nice and uniform. So to finish it off, what we do is choose this feeder, so it's got a nice piece of line on the back of gap. That gap is what you lay your line in like so, and then that tube goes in, and you can pull the tube like so, and there you go, your feeder is on. So all you need to do after that is slide down that sleeve, which is on the other side of the table. We slide down that sleeve until it seats on top, and once that is on top, your rig, but without your hook link, is complete. And you can see how effective that is. And like I said, an inline feeder means that it can slide up the line. So as soon as that fish takes bait, it pull out that bead, and this can slide freely up and down the line without affecting the fish. So we'll make sure we've got the bits and bobs out to tie a hook link, and we'll show you what that looks like. Right guys, so we've got the things ready to tie the hook link. So I'm imagining this is going to be a big carp session, and I'm going to be fishing a bigger feeder with pellets and things like that. I've got some 018, which is around 6.5 pound, 16 hook, and a pellet band that's going to be around an 8mm. So I'm after big fish with this rig, but I'm mainly using the bigger stuff so it's a little bit easier to see. So I'm going to be tying quite a short rig here. Now again, this is going to be one of those I do it this way, you do it this way, I do it this way scenarios. I don't use an hook tire, I don't use a measurement, I just know what kind of lengths I want. I don't fish matches, I don't need 300 hook links tied up all at the same thing. If you want to, that's brilliant, and you know, hook tires are great, gizmo, auto sort. I don't say that this is the way you do it. I'm just saying, if you just want to knock some rigs up, this is how I tie them. So what I do first is take a little bit of line. I've got around a foot there. A foot's enough to work. Well, it's probably more actually, 14 inches if I'm honest, but it's enough for me to work with. And I do stress that you do need to give yourself a little bit of line extra to work with. Now, I'm not going to be doing a particularly long hook link, around sort of 4 inches, so I probably cut off a little bit too much, but in the aid of doing this video, it makes it easier. So I've taken off a band, and again, I'll do my best. I'll hold it up to the camera. It's not easy to see, I know, but I'm going to slide the hook straight through the hole of the elastic. So the elastic's on there. Now, as I've just shown you, I make it onto a loop. So I grab the main line here, that's the tag end, and this is the main line where it's going to be held together, and it sits on the loop. The band sits on the loop just as it did when we've just attached that end piece of bead. So again, I'm going to do that same knot. It's an overhand knot, but what I don't want to do is pull it right up to the elastic. I pull it gently, but I want to leave a mil or so between the elastic and the knot. And the reason I do that is when you're catching a lot of fish and you've got the bait on and it's a lot of strain, if the elastic can sit on a loop like that's now sat on a tiny little loop, I'll show you, I'll get it up, pick it up. It's sat on a tiny little loop, and that just allows the band to move around, and it's not too tight that it's going to cut through the band. So just repeat that same overhand knot. We're using both the lines together. Wet the loop, and just gently pull that down to that other knot. So got 2 knots sat together. Always double your knots up, and then what you want to do is just cut off that little excess, because we don't need that. What I tend to do is I just cut off nearly all of it, and it's just enough for me to get my teeth and just pull it, that knot, just super tight. And then you know that it's as tight as you can get it. And see that's made that little tag a little bit longer, and I now can snip it off with confidence, knowing that I'm not going to end up with that coming off. So I know it's not the easiest to see. We'll try and hold it. I don't know if that's better. We'll hold it there. So now we've got the band on. We need to look at the hooks. Now, they're a special type of hook that you want to use. You can see where the eye is, it's got a nice little bend in it, and that's allowing you to put this knotless knot on it, and it'll sit behind nicely with a hair rig. That's the kind of hook that you want, with the shank is tapered slightly where the eye is. So I'll put those away. Right, so we find the band, and what you want to do now is leave the band far away and grab your fingers with the point of the hook. So now that's exposing the back of the eye, and the band's obviously attached first, and I want to run that line through the back of the hook, like so. So that's through the back of the hook. I'm going to pull that all the way down whilst holding the hook and now we can see that the hook is coming up to where the elastic is. Now this is where you decide how long you want your hair rig. Now I like the band just sitting at the bottom of the shank of the hook. I find that works perfect for me. So once you've done that, you need to nip the band and nip the hook in your fingers, and that leaves, as you can see, the shank of the hook to allow us to rotate the line over the top. So make the first rotation, and you want around 8 rotations. You can go more if you want. Keep it tight while you're doing it, nice and tight, and go down to as far as you can to your fingers what are holding the shank, and then do one little half turn, and then what we're doing is just finding the end of that line whilst pinching the hook, so then that line doesn't, the rest of the line that's gone over doesn't come off. Now we want to put the line straight through the back of the eye, like so, straight through the back of the eye, and then we're going to pull it, and when that loop gets right up to the shank of the hook like that, that's where we give it a little bit of wet. We keep pulling, and that's pulled tight. So now you can see the hook is perfect. It's on, the band's right next to it, it's free to move around, and we just need to put a loop in it. So that same loop is the same. Now I measure around 6 inches is to the tip of my tattoo to the top of my thumb. So if I want around 4 inches, I want to be about here. So all I do is pinch the line, like I said before, exactly the same knot that we've just used twice, and we use that loop and pass it, make a loop on the main line and pass that little loop through. And what you want to do when it goes through there is grab that loop and grab your main line and gently pull it in the main line, because you want that loop to be quite a small little loop. You keep pulling it up until it nips at the top. Give it a little wet and pull it tight, and just repeat that same process. So go round, and then the loop goes through the loop, gently pull it tight. That knot will seat next to the other knot, a little bit of wet, and then all we have to do is cut the tag end off with the scissors. Like I said before, cut the tag end off, give yourself a little bit of tag to tighten it with your teeth. So I grab the loop, grab the tag, and just give it a little pull, and that allows me, I know now it's super tight. I never cut it right to the knot, but I can snip a little bit more off. So now that is absolutely bob on. I've got the loop at the top, I've got the hook and the band at the bottom. It's perfectly in line, and all it's left to do is to hook it on. So we've got that bead that we said before. Now this, sometimes you can do it with your nails, sometimes you have to just gently tease it open with your teeth, especially when they're new. And if you look round, it's going to be very impossible to see this on camera, but there's a little like hoop on it, exactly like a stomp throw connector, which is the connectors on your pole, and you want to set that line in there and make sure it pulls right against the end of the bead. Once it does, keep it tight and push that bead in, and now that is not going to come off, and you are left with a fantastic inline running rig. So there's the rig itself. I've got the hook sat on my hand, and we've got the feeder, and it lays perfectly flat, and if you were to slide it, you can slide it up the line, and it comes away, which makes it safe, and back onto the bead. The hook link is perfect. You can just stick that straight into the feeder, and you're absolutely good to go. And you know, that's going to catch you absolutely loads of fish. Really simple. Hopefully that's come over great for you. Let's get back into the main camera and sign that off. Well guys, I hope that came out for you. I won't know until I'm editing it, so fingers crossed it does. But any questions, you know, just let me know. And the way that we've put on the band is exactly the same if you're doing a quick stop. You would thread it on the same, you would tie the same knot, leave the same gap, exactly the same kind of hooks, and you'll get the same situation. And you can interchange that feeder with a method feeder, which makes it a really universal rig. And again, you could put a longer link on there and slide on a bomb if you want to do some bomb fishing. So really good, simple, quick and easy rig, and hopefully it was easy enough to follow. I know it's quite difficult with doing anything like that close up. Like, share and subscribe, guys. Thanks a lot for watching, and until the next one, tight lines.